Alright, what up? This is a continuum of my series talking about the chakras. In this video, I'll be talking about the sacral chakra. If you have no idea what chakras are, if you're just getting into this, or if that's the first video you clicked on, I strongly recommend you click on my video where I talk about the root chakra. That video is titled How Our Chakras Manifest Our Physical Reality. There I describe what the chakras are, as well as talking about the root chakra. That video will give you like a basic understanding of what this whole thing is about. And just like the root chakra is the lowest one, raising upwards like the Kundalini snake, I'm gonna attempt to do the same thing where I move up those energy centers, describing each one and eventually reaching the crown chakra. So let's go. The sacral chakra. In this video, I'll talk about what it is, what influence it has over our physical body. If you've watched my last video, you know that these energy centers, these non-material energetic fields, have a direct correlation to our physical body, even at a chemical level, how our body operates. I'll talk about how the sacral chakra is very strongly tied to creativity and sexuality. I'll talk about how our body operates when it is in a balanced state, when it is in an overactive state, which can be destructive, and when it is in an unbalanced or blocked state. And in the end, I'll give some information on how to balance this particular energy center. So, what are chakras? No, not what are chakras. What is the sacral chakra? The sacral chakra comes from the Sanskrit word svadhisthana, which translated to English would be where your being is established. It governs the emotional and sensual feeling layer of the body, which makes it arguably one of the most important and influential chakras for our everyday existence and overall tied to our being, because we perceive pleasure through our five senses, and the sacral chakra rules everything that has to do with sensuality and pleasure. And it also has the strongest tie to sex and reproduction, and that is also something I'll talk about in this video, because sexuality is kind of like the main reason why we're here. Yes, so it is also responsible for our sense of oneself, our ability to form and operate healthy relationships, our as I mentioned, our senses. The element is water, and it is represented by this six-lepelled flower, which is orange. That is always how it is represented in artwork and on any diagram of the chakras that you see. So, which body parts are affected? Just based on the location of that chakra, you can kind of assume which functions in the body it would be responsible for. That would be the bladder, the prostate, the womb, the pelvis, the nervous system, the lower back, fluid function, but most importantly, the adrenal glands and sexual organs. Now, what is interesting about the tie between the sexual organs and the adrenal glands? These two things have had possibly the biggest contribution to our survival and reproduction as a species. That is why we have come so far as a civilization, because obviously with sexuality it is reproduction, it is the ability to create another human being, but the adrenal glands, which are also this kind of animalistic part of us, just like the sexual part of us, but these adrenal glands, they rule the fight or flight response of the body, which has allowed us to survive, because we knew when a predator is coming, when it is time to run, and when it is time to fight back. So the adrenal glands allowed us to survive, the sexual organs allowed us to reproduce. Now, let's talk more about sexuality. So, as the center of passion, it awakens the power of creation. It contains unconscious desires, especially sexual desires. It is said by many spiritual practitioners, such as yogis, that it is very difficult to raise the Kundalini snake, which is the energy of consciousness, above the sacral chakra. Now, I'm gonna explain what that whole thing means. So this Kundalini snake, which I just mentioned, is the energy of consciousness. It is your creative energy in a way. It is that life force. And it is strongly associated with, at least from a male's perspective, I can only speak for males, with the sexual fluids, right? And the reason why most people are not able to raise that sexual energy above the sacral chakra is because they allow that energy to remain at the sacral chakra. Now, there are practices such as semen retention, pranayama yoga, certain breath work, certain physical exercises, meditation, creative work that can allow this sexual energy, or this Kundalini double serpent, to rise to higher levels of consciousness, which carry immeasurable benefits for the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual evolution of a human being. So this sexual energy, your seed or your, sexual fluids, I'm just talking about men because that's all I can talk about. They have that's the capacity, that's kind of like the seed, which can literally create life, which literally can create another human being that can, like a baby that can grow up, live for like 100 years, and, like a whole human being, which is kind of crazy. But I just mentioned that because since you are able to use this sexual fluid, this sexual energy, to create another child, the action where you kind of preserve that, keep it within, and do not, spill that energy, do not release that energy, and allow it to rise to higher levels of consciousness above the sacral animalistic part of us, then you are able to access simply higher states of consciousness, because you are using this base level sexual desire, this animalistic desire, and you are transmuting your sexual energy to higher centers of the body, which allows for, as I've mentioned, new powers to arise. And I wouldn't have mentioned this if this was some secret, activity that only the elite have access to. Everybody has access to these practices and to the power which these practices are able to give you. It's just not everybody is able to practice them. But what I can say from personal experience is that if you do, at least for, a certain period of time, preserve that sexual energy, you get physical benefits, you feel stronger, you are able to endure more physical pressure, your emotions become more stable, your mental activity is just heightened, you can think quicker, you can create quicker, you have ideas which you don't usually have, your brain is quicker, your brain is just quicker. And also, it aids in spiritual evolution, which is why a lot of monks or pastors or religious spiritual gurus or people of this status often talk about being, celibate and not kind of indulging in the act of, you get what I'm trying to say, because it allows them to access, higher states of consciousness, and that can give them a stronger connection to the divine, a stronger connection to source, right? Whatever that may be for each religion or individual, right? I just found that interesting to mention. I'll talk about this in a different way further on in the video. Now, what I want to talk about now is the free flowing energy of this chakra, how your body is able to operate on all levels when this energy is completely balanced and free flowing. That's where you're able to trust yourself, trust the universe, trust other people. That's when you have free flowing expression of yourself and of your creativity. That's when you're comfortable with your own creative and emotional state. That's where you feel grounded in yourself and you're truly comfortable with all aspects of yourself. When you have a strong gut instinct, because it kind of rules that area on the physical. So it would have a tie to the gut instinct, which is kind of like your intuition, your sixth sense, right? And a free-flowing, healthy, balanced chakra, sacral chakra, will allow you to be fully compassionate and loving towards yourself, other individuals, nature, and it will allow you to take risks. Now, what can happen when the chakra is overactive is that you have extreme mood swings. You have dissatisfaction with life in general. You can have addictive behaviors. You feel disconnected and separate from the world. You are able to express intense displays of affection, which may not be appropriate. And you have uncontrollable sexual urges and sexual desires. Now, this is all kind of tied in together because since that sacral chakra rules our senses and our sensual pleasure, it would obviously have to do with the addictions which people have, with the sexual kind of habits that people have. And I think I'm able to explain it the best way by talking about that famous musicians or actors, or I think let's just focus on the musicians for now. People like, I don't know, what was his name? The Mercury guy, or certain rock bands, I don't know, AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, or modern rappers. They all had this sort of, obviously extremely talented. They have this extreme outflow of creative energy, but they also take the problems which come with that because it's all tied to this overactive sacral chakra. That would be overactive creativity, but also the disbalance which comes with that would be emotional disbalance, the sexual disbalance in sexual expression, addictions, destructive tendencies, because with heightened expression and creativity, there is heightened destruction. If we look at the law of polarity, which is a naturally occurring law, which is one of the 12 laws of the universe, is the Hermetic principle of polarity, which is as above, so below, as within, so without, which is the yin and yang of our nature. That just simply means that, what is it? Newton's third law of motion, which is that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So what that all means is that the universe has polarities. everything has its polar opposite with it. And if, let me use my favorite artist, Juice World, as an example to explain this whole phenomenon. So, with heightened expression, which he had, which would be this overactive sacral chakra, right? That would also carry within it an equal and opposite dark force, which would be his heightened desire for self-destruction, his self-destructive tendencies. As you may know, he has died of a drug overdose and has been a drug addict for pretty much a long time, and his whole career, right? Now, it's interesting how all that is kind of tied together, because if he said in the song, like, if it wasn't for them pills, I won't be here. But if I keep taking these pills, I won't be here. So he's kind of hinting to the fact that certain substances allowed him to enter certain creative states, which have allowed him to come to a certain place and achieve certain things, but the same thing is able to destroy him, right? So if that is the case for him, and he had this sort of overactive, uncontrolled sacral chakra, he would have heightened creativity, which he did because he had extreme talent, but that also carries within it the whole dark side of things, which we see in many other artists, especially rock stars. They're known for sort of destruction and through drugs, alcohol, and sexual perversion, which is also the unbalanced kind of dark side of the sacral chakra, which is what I'm going to talk about now. I don't know if this whole thing made sense. I'm very scatterbrained. I hope it made sense. For the right people, it made sense. Let's put it that way. But what happens when the chakra is blocked? Now, it is said that the chakra is mostly blocked by fear, guilt, and shame. When it is unbalanced, it causes emotional disturbances, reduced creativity, and an obsession and perversion of sexual activity. You may be lacking in creativity, discipline, as well as having an addiction to sensory pleasures, which is where this drug or substance addiction comes in, right? Because an unbalanced sacral chakra makes people much more emotionally reactive, and being more emotionally reactive can lead to feelings of anxiety and depression, which can then cause these destructive drug habits to occur. Bro, do I have water? Hold up. Give me a sec. Going crazy. All right, let's go. So, it would also carry within it a fear of pleasure, a lack of creativity, certain fatigue, lack of desire, insecurity, detachment, low libido, low functioning sexual function, and depression. So, as you can see, the polar opposite of this, creative, positive energy would be the destructive, the perverted side of it. Because, as I've mentioned, the law of polarity, everything that has a bright side has a dark side. Now, I hope that made sense as well. What can I talk about? How to balance this energy center. Now, there are certain yoga practices, as well as affirmations or changes in lifestyle, which you can do to have a... Damn, my eyes. to have a positive influence on the balance of these energy centers. There are certain essential oils which you can use, as well as certain, crystals or whatever, but that's not my speciality. That's just from some very brief research, what I'm talking about. But an overall balanced, healthy lifestyle is obviously going to positively influence that sacral chakra. All right. Where did we land here? How many minutes am I on? 20 minutes. My voice started to go crazy, man. I think like halfway through the video. Sweating and shit. Damn. I'm sitting in a warm ass room, and if I put the AC on, it just becomes way too hot and it becomes like loud and I cannot record properly. So I'm sitting here coughing and sweating like crazy. Anything to explain the sacral chakra to my fellow humans. But yeah, I hope that was useful. I hope you could learn something. And long live Juice WRLD. If you like this video, please make sure to leave like the most hateful comment you can possibly imagine to leave under a YouTube video. That's really gonna, help the YouTube algorithm do its thing and get me famous so I can buy a lot of V-Bucks for my Fortnite account. Thank you. Bye.